Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopi Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Haripi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chev Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiri. Tusi Radhe Golokananda Bhagwan ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna again. Hare Krishna Jai. Sachin.
Hare Krishna Sachin.
Hare Krishna.
Nalisha Krishna. Yeah, today I think Anilji is Anilji has had to go out. I think अपना घर दिखा रहे हो. They are selling their house in Washington, so yeah. Hope everyone had a nice weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a Janmashtami week. This Friday is Janmashtami. So it's really going to be nice. And last week हम लोग श्लोक 63rd पढ़ रहे थे. तो जैसा कि हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं, Dhruv Maharaj, after doing the tapasya and of course Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? He did darshan of Lord Vishnu. Then he did stuti. Yeah, he did stuti of Lord Vasudev. And actually we are going to hear that stuti today at the end of the satsang. And then he came back home. And after he came back home, Maharaj Dhruv's father, what's the name?
Shambhavu Manu.
You know, of the father. The
Uttanpad.
Uttanpad, Maharaj Uttanpad, yeah. And Shambhu Manu was the grandfather.
Sorry.
And then Lord Brahma is the Grand Pitamaha, Dhruv Maharaj. So Maharaj Uttanpad, he goes to receive him, he brings him back to the palace, and then what the descriptions we have been reading is about the palace and how Maharaj Dhruv grows up there. Yeah. So we read Slok 63, which was describing the king's residence. The king's residence was surrounded by gardens, wherein there were varieties of trees brought from the heavenly planets. Yeah, the trees which were there were brought from the heavenly planets, like the upper planets. In those trees, there were pairs of sweetly singing birds and almost made bumblebees, which made a very relishable buzzing sound. Yeah, so it says, you know, Vichitra Amar Drume. Amar Drume is the heavenly planets. So there were trees which were brought in from the heavenly planets in that palace. Yeah, so we'll start with Shlok 64. Tarun.
Vapyo Veduryapsopanaha Patmotpatpala Kumud Vatiha Hamsa Karanadava Kulair Justus Chakravya Sarseha Sarseha. There were emerald staircases which led to lakes full of variously colored lotus flowers and lilies and swans. Karandavas, Chakravakas, cranes, and similar other valuable birds were visible in those lakes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So palace surrounded by lakes, and the staircases were of emerald, which led to the lakes, is what is described in that palace. Yeah. Ajay?
Sure. Uttan Pado Rajarshi Prabhavam Tanayasya Tam Shrutva Drishtva Shuddh Tatam Tatmam Prapede Vismayam Param. The saintly king Uttanpad, hearing of the glorious deeds of Dhruv Maharaj and personally seeing also how influential and great he was, felt very satisfied, for Dhruv's activities were wonderful to the supreme degree. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So King Uttanpad, Maharaj Dhruv's father, was very satisfied based on him. And here Uttanpad is described as Rajashri. Yeah. Raja Rishi, like not every king was Raj Rishi, right? But during those days, right, the kings were the Rishis, right? So they were called as Rajashris. So
Just like a scrum master, servant leader.
yeah, no, Rajashri used to be like where the Raja used to be like a Rishi, right? So not like the Raja who wants to be attached to the power or who is basically, just doing politics, but he was Raja with a Rishi mindset, right? So for everyone's kalyan, everyone's benefit. And that's how they used to work. Like we had even Maharaj Parikshit was called a Rajashri, right? So like that, Maharaj Uttanpad, of course, being son of Shambhu Manu himself, was a big Rajashri. Yeah? So Sachin?
Viksho Dhavayasam Tam Cha Prakritinam Cha Sammatam Anurakta Prajam Raja Dhruvam Chakre Bhuva Pratim. When, after concentration, King Uttanpada saw that Dhruva Maharaj was suitably mature to take charge of the kingdom and that his ministers were agreeable and the citizens were also very fond of him, he enthroned Dhruva as emperor of this planet. Hare Krishna.
Emperor of this planet, right? So during that time, so when Maharaja Uttanpad was leading, right, as a king, he was the emperor of the whole planet, not just one country or something, right? But so Anurakta Prajam, he saw the citizens were very fond of Maharaj Dhruv. What did he do? Raja Dhruvam Chakre Bhuvam Patim. Bhuvam Patim is Bhuvam Patim, like the whole planet. Yeah. So he enthroned Dhruv as emperor of this planet. Yeah. Isha, will you read?
Yeah. The translation.
The shlok and the
Yes. Yeah. Atmanam cha pravayasam akalya vishwam patiha vanam viraktaha pratishtad vimsham atmanugatim. After considering his advanced age and deliberating on the welfare of his spiritual self, King Uttanapad detached himself from worldly affairs and entered the forest.
Hare Krishna. Huh?
Hare Krishna.
So, yeah, so Maharaj Dhruv became the king, and King Uttanpad, then he detached himself from everything, from worldly affairs, and entered the forest. It says, Vanam Viraktaha and Atmanogatim, right, for the spiritual advancement. And this ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 4th canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruv Maharaj Returns Home. So Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
yeah, so we completed 9th chapter now of the 4th canto, And we will continue reading chapter 10, which is Dhruv Maharaj's fight with the Yaksas. Yeah. So start with this, Tarun.
Maitrevacha Prajapate Druhitaram Shishumarasya Vedruha Upayeme Brahmi Nama Tassuto Kalpavastaro. The great sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, thereafter Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumara, whose name was Brahmi, and two sons named Kalpa and Vatsara were born of her. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So then it describes, and Maitreya Muni is, of course, telling this Srimad Bhagavatam to Mahatma Vidur, yeah, at Ganga Tat, if you remember. So he is saying, continuing telling the story of Dhruv Maharaj, where he says after Dhruv Maharaj became king and he married the daughter of Prajapati, Shishumara, and the name was Brahmi. Yeah, the two sons of Brahmi is Kalp and Vatsara. Yeah. Ajay?
Sure. Ilaya mapi bhayarya vayu putram mahabalah putra mulk kalna manam yoshidvatvana majid janat. The greatly powerful Dhruv Maharaj had another wife named Ila, who was the daughter of the demigod Vayu. By her, he begot a son named Utkal and a very beautiful daughter. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So first wife Dhruv Maharaj's name was Brahmi. Second is Ila, and Ila is Vayoha Putriam. So Putra of Vayudev. Yeah. And then so he had Kalp and Vatsara, right? Daughter. And then here he had a son named Utkal and another daughter. Yeah.
So Vayu is also Pawan Putra Hanuman's father, right?
So Hanumanji is so Hanumanji has a whole story, right? Hanumanji is called Vayudev because also known as the Vayuputra, right? But he also Kesari Nandan, right? He's also son of Kesari, but he's actually Lord Shivji and Parvati combined avatar is Lord Hanumanji, right? So he has a lot of various stories. But yeah, he's also known as Vayuputra, Pawan Putra Hanuman, right? So there's a whole story about that.
Oh, okay.
Sachin?
सत्व कृतो वाहो मृगयायां बलीयसा हतः पुण्य जनेनांद्रो तन्मातास्य गतिं गता. Dhruva Maharaj's younger brother Uttama, who was still unmarried, once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful yaksha in the Himalaya mountains. Along with him, his mother Suruchi also followed the path of her son. That is, she died. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so actually, I don't know if in earlier shlokas, if you remember, it's kind of, his brother Uttam, right, from the other stepmother Suruchi, right? And, it was wished that it was mentioned by someone that they will go to the forest and then, get killed there. And that's what happened. So they went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful yaksh. Yeah. Isha?
Dhruvodhatarvadham Shrutva Kopamashta Sutarpita Jatam Snanadam Astaya Gata Punya Janalayam. When Dhruva Maharaj heard of the killing of his brother Uttama by the Yakshas in the Himalaya mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger, he got on his chariot and went out for victory over the city of the Yakshas, Alakapuri.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So, so then Maharaj Dhruv heard about that, and so then he heads to the Alkapuri where all the yakshas are living. Let me see what happens there, right? Gatto dijim disham raja rudra anuchar sevitam dadarshahim vada dronyam purim grihe kashankulam. So Dhruv Maharaj went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley, he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. Yeah, it says that it is stated that the yakshas are more or less devotees of Lord Shiva. By this indication, the yakshas may be taken to be the Himalayan tribes like the Tibetans. Sachin?
Dadmo Shankam Bruhadadhuhu Kham Disha Shcha Nunadayanam Yono Dvigna Drushaha Shatta Rupa Devyo Atra San Brusham. Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj reached Alkapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the yakshas became very much frightened. From their eyes, it was apparent that they were full of anxiety." Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so he blew his shank. Tarun?
ततो निष्कर्म बलिना उपदेव महाबतः असाहन्तस्तन् निनादन् अभिपेतुर उधयुद्धः. O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the yakshas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the conch shell of Dhruva Maharaj, came forth from their city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so the war between yakshas and Dhruva started. Yeah. Isha?
ततान आपततो वीर अग्रधन्वा महारथः एकैकं युगपत् सर्वान् अहन् बाणैस्त्रिभिः. Dhruva Maharaj, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman also, immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows 3 at a time.
Hare Krishna. Ajay?
ते वै ललाट लग्नैस्त्रै शुभिः सर्व एव हि मत्वा निरस्त मात्मानमाश शंसं कर्म तस्य tat. When the heroes of the Yaksha saw that all their heads were being thus threatened by Dhruva Maharaj, they could very easily understand their awkward position, and they concluded that they would certainly be defeated. But as heroes, they lauded the action of Dhruva. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So that's it. It says that it's a Kshatriya spirit of Yaksas, right? That they were appreciating enemies' prowess, right? Like Dhruva Maharaj was so powerful. Te api chamum rishyantah padishparshamivoraga sharira vidyanyupada dvigunam prachikirshavaha. Just like serpents who cannot tolerate being trampled upon by anyone's feet, the Yaksas, being intolerant of the wonderful prowess of Dhruva Maharaj, threw twice as many arrows, 6 from each of their soldiers, and thus they very valiantly exhibited their prowess. Yeah? Sachin?
ततः परिगणे त्रिशः प्रासशूल परश्वधेय शत्रुष्टि विभुर्षुण्डि भिश्चत्रवा जयः शरैरपि अभ्यवर्षन् प्रकृपीताः सरथं सहसा रथिम् इच्छन्त तत्प्रति कर्तुं युतानां त्रयोदश. The Yaksha soldiers were 130,000 strong, all greatly angry and all desiring to defeat the wonderful activities of Dhruva Maharaj. With full strength, they showered upon Dhruva Maharaj Dhruva, along with his chariot and charioteer, various types of feathered arrows, parighas, iron bludgeons, nishtrimsas, swords, prasashulas, tridents, parasavadhas, lances, shaktis, pikes, prishtis, spears, and busundi weapons. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So 130,000 strong Yaksh soldiers were fighting with Maharaj Dhruv. Yeah. Tarun?
औतानपादिः स तदा शस्त्रवरे वश्रेण भूरिणा न दृश्यता छन्न आसारेण यथा गिरिः. Dhruva Maharaj was completely covered by an incessant shower of weapons, just as the mountain is covered by incessant rainfall. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So Dhruv Maharaj is completely surrounded by the arrows. Ajay?
Hahakar deva isti siddhana divi pashyatam hatau ayam manava suryo magna punya janarnave. All the siddhas from the high planetary systems were observing the fight from the sky, and when they saw that Dhruv Maharaj had been covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, they roared tumultuously, "The grandson of Manu, Dhruv, is now lost." They cried that Dhruv Maharaj was just like the sun and that now he had set with the ocean of the Yakshas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Isha?
Nadatsu yatu dhanishu jaya kashishva athumrade utatishtad ratastasya niharad iva bhaskara. The Yakshas, being temporarily victorious, exclaimed that they had conquered Dhruv Maharaj. But in the meantime, Dhruv's chariot suddenly appeared, just as the sun suddenly appears from within foggy mist. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Sachin?
Visfur Jayan Divyam Dvishtatam Khedamudvahan Asatraugham Vedama Daner Ghanani Kami Vanila. Dhruva Maharaj's bow and arrows twanged and hissed, causing lamentation in the hearts of his enemies. He began to shoot incessant arrows, shattering all their different weapons, just as the blasting wind scatters the assembled clouds in the sky. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So between Maharaj Dhruv and Yakshas, the war is being described, right? Tashyate chapa nirmukta bhitva varnani rakshasam kayana vivishu stigma giri nashanyo yatha. The sharp arrows released from the bow of Dhruv Maharaj pierce the shields and bodies of the enemy like the thunderbolts released by the King of Heaven, which dismantle the bodies of the mountains. Yeah? Ajay?
Sure. Bhallai sanjich mananam shiru bhikshar kundalai urur bhih matal la bhardo bhavel vilgubhe har ke yur Mukutei Rushni Shesh Mahadhanai Astrita Tasta Ran Bhuvo Rej Veer Manohara. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidur, the heads of those who were cut to the pieces by the arrows of Dhruv Maharaj were decorated very beautifully with the earrings and turbans. The legs of their bodies were as beautiful as golden palm trees. Their arms were decorated with golden bracelets and armlets, and on their heads there were many valuable helmets bedecked with gold. All these ornaments lying on the battlefield were very attractive and could bewilder the mind of a hero. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tarun? Tarun? Okay, Isha? Oh, Tarun, will you say?
You want me to read, Gajan?
Yeah.
Sure. Ata Vashishta Itare Ranajirada Rashogana Kshatriya Varya Sayakeh Prayo Vivkranaya Yava Vidur Dhruvar Magrendra Vikridita Yutapa Iva. The remaining yakshas who somehow or other were not killed had their limbs cut to pieces the arrows of the great warrior Dhruva Maharaj. Thus they began to flee, just as elephants flee when defeated by a lion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Isha?
Apashyamanah sa tadatatayanam mahamride kanchana manavotamaha purim didikshan api navishadvisham namayanam vedachik irsitam janaha. Dhruv Maharaj, the best of human beings, observed that in that great battlefield, not one of the opposing soldiers was left standing with proper weapons. He then desired to see the city of Alakapuri, but he thought to himself, no one knows the plans of the mystic yakshas. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Sachin?
इति ध्रुवं चित्ररथः स्वसारथिं यत्तः परेषां प्रतियोग शङ्कितः श्रुश्राव शब्दं जलधे रिवे ऋतं नभस्वतो दिक्षु राजो अन्विदृश्यत. In the meantime, while Dhruva Maharaj, doubtful of his mystic enemies, was talking with his charioteer, they heard a tremendous sound, as if the whole ocean were there, and they found that from the sky a great dust storm was coming over them from all directions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Kshanena chaditam vyom dhanani kena sarvata vishfurtardita dikshu trasayasta naitanuna. Within a moment, the whole sky was overcast with dense clouds and severe thundering was heard. There was glittering electric lightning and severe rainfall. Ajay?
Sure. Vavishu Rudhirao Dhasikrit Puya Virmutra Medasaha Nipetu Garganadasya Kabandhanya Grato Nag. My dear faultless Vidur, in the rainfall there was blood, mucus, pus, stool, urine, and marrow falling heavily before Dhruv Maharaj, and there were trunks of bodies falling from the sky. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So the war is being continuously mentioned, how it was being fought. Right? Tarun?
तदा के दृश्यते गिरिर निपुतेः सर्वतोदिशमः गदा परिगा निस्त्रिंसा मुसुला सस्म वर्षिणः न. Next, a great mountain was visible in the sky, and from all directions hailstones fell, along with lances, clubs, swords, iron, bludgeons, and great pieces of stone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Rasikshan Prabhuji.
हरे कृष्णा.
पढ़ेंगे?
हाँ ठीक है. अहयो शनि निश्वासा वामन्तो अग्निरुषाक्षिभिः अभ्यधावान् गजामतः सिंहं व्याघ्रश्च युथसः. Dhruva Maharaj also saw many big serpents with angry eyes, vomiting forth fire and coming to devour him, along with groups of mad elephants, lions, and tigers. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah? So like this, Dhruv Maharaj is totally surrounded by those activities of mystic yakshas. Yeah? Isha?
समुद्र ऊर्मिभिः भीम प्लावयन् सर्वतो भुवम् आससाद महारातः कल्पान्त इव भीषणः. Then, as if it were the time of the dissolution of the whole world, the fierce sea with foaming waves and great roaring sounds came forward before him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, even the fierce sea with foaming waves came in front of, before him. Before whom? Whom are we talking about here? Who is fighting?
Dhruv Maharaj.
Dhruv Maharaj, right? So yakshas, being the mystic yakshas, right? He's seeing like all those things are happening before him. Yeah, that's how the fight is going on. Ajay?
Evam vidhanyane kani tras nanya manasvinam susrijugasti magataya asurya mayayahasura. The demon yakshas are by nature very heinous, and by their demonic power of illusion, they can create many strange phenomena to frighten one who is less intelligent. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Tarun?
ध्रुवे प्रायुक्तम् असुरेसे तममयम् मायम् अति दुष्टरम् निशम्य तस्य मुनय सम असांसं सन समगतः. When the great sages heard that Dhruva Maharaj was overpowered by the illusory mystic tricks of the demons, they immediately assembled to offer him auspicious encouragement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the great sages got together. Yeah. Rasikshan Prabhuji?
मुनियः उचुः औतान पाद भगवान स्तवः सारंग धन्वा देवेः छिन्नोत्वा नातिहरो विपक्षान् यन्नाम मधेयभिधाय निशम्य चाद्वा लोको जसाः तरति दुरस्तमं मृत्युम्. All the sages said, Dear Dhruv, O son of King Utanpad, may, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead known as Sarangdhanva, who relieves the distress of his devotees, heal all your threatening enemies. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. Therefore, simply by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, many men can be fully protected from fierce death without difficulty. Thus, a devotee is saved. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so few things are mentioned. The great sages are telling Dhruv Maharaj, first of all, Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Bhagavan is the Shangar Dhanvas, right? And what is being mentioned is the one who relieves the distresses of his devotees. Yeah. And then it says the holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. Yeah, Namadheyam Dhyaya. Yeah. And so basically they are saying a devotee is always saved is what all the sages are reminding Dhruv Maharaj. And so actually let's read this purport. Nice, Tarun.
The great rishis approached Dhruv Maharaj at a time when his mind was very perplexed due to the magical feats exhibited by the yakshas. A devotee is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his inspiration only, the sages came to encourage Dhruv Maharaj and assure him that there was no danger because he was a soul fully rendered to the Supreme Lord. By the grace of the Lord, if a devotee at the time of death can simply chant his holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Isha.
Simply by chanting this Mahamantra, he immediately surpasses the great ocean of the material sky and enters the spiritual sky. He never has to come back for a repetition of birth and death. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can surpass the ocean of death. So Dhruv Maharaj was certainly able to surpass the illusory magical feats of the yakshas, which for the time being disturbed his mind. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so all the great rishis approached Dhruv Maharaj and then reminded him that by the grace of the Lord, you know, so many things can happen. And even the simple thing is like if you chant the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Simply by chanting this Maha Mantra, one can immediately surpass the great ocean of material sky and enter the spiritual sky, right? So get away from the cycle of birth and death simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Okay, so that's what sages are advising, and then we will see what happens next. But meanwhile, we also finish one more chapter today. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 4th canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Dhruv Maharaj fight with the Yaksas. Yeah. So that's really nice. Bolo Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai. Jai.
Much completed 2 chapters today, right? 9th and 10th. So that's really nice. And so we'll continue to read about this, how what happens next, and how Dhruv Maharaj then, you know, go further, and how Shambhu Manu advises Dhruv Maharaj. So that'll be really nice. So we are going to pause here. See you tomorrow at 10. And then we are going to hear. So during the Madhuban, you know, when Maharaj Dhruv was doing the tapasya, and he, if you remember, we read the prayers of Dhruv Maharaj, yeah, to Lord Vasudev. And that's what we are going to hear today. It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes prayers. Yeah. And then we'll see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And so Bhagavatam, as you know, the 9th chapter from Shlok 17 to the 7th chapter, Shlok from up to 28th Shlok.
शक्तिधरः स्वधाम्ना अन्याश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादि प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् एकस्त्वमेव भगवन्निदमात्मशक्त्या मायाख्ययोरुगुणया महदाद्यशेषम् सृष्ट्वानुविश्य पुरुषस्तदसद्गुणेषु नानेव दारुषु विभावसु वद्विभासि त्वद्दत्तया वयुनयेदमजष्ट विश्वम् सुप्तप्रबुद्ध इव नाथ भवत्प्रपन्नः तस्यापवर्ग्य शरणं तव पादमूलम् विस्मर्यते कृतविदा कथमार्तबन्धो नूनं विमुष्टमतयस्तव मायया ते ये त्वां भवाप्यय विमोक्षणमन्यहेतोः अर्चन्ति कल्पकतरुं गुणपोपभोग्यम् इच्छन्ति यत्स्पर्शजं गिरयेऽपि नृणाम् या निर्वृतिस्तनुभृतां तव पादपद्म ध्यानात् भवज्जनकथा श्रवणेन वा स्यात् सा ब्रह्मणि स्वमहिमन्यपि नाथमाभूत् किं त्वन्तकसि लुलितात् पततां विमानात् भक्तिं मुहुः प्रवहतां त्वयि मे प्रसङ्गो भूयादनन्तमहताममलाशयाना येनाद्यसोल्बणमुरुव्यसनं भवाब्धिं नेष्ये भवद्गुणकथामृतपानमत्तः तेन स्मरन्त्यतितरां प्रियमीशमद्यम् ये चान्वदः सुतसुहृद्गृहवित्तदाराः ये त्वब्जनाभ भवदीयपदारविन्द सौगन्ध्यलुब्धहृदयेषु कृतप्रसङ्गाः तिर्यन्नगद्विजसरीसृपदेव दैत्य मर्त्यादिभिः परिचितं सदसद्विशेषम् रूपं स्थविष्टमजते महदाद्यनेकम् नातः परं परमवेद्विनयत्र वादः कल्पान्त एतदखिलं जठरेण गृह्णन् शेते पुमान् स्वदृगनन्तसखस्तदङ्के यन्नाभिसिन्धुरुह काञ्चनलोकपद्म गर्भे धुमान् भगवते प्रणतोऽस्मि तस्मै त्वं नित्यमुक्तपरिशुद्धविबुद्ध आत्मा कूटस्थ आदिपुरुषो भगवास्त्यधीशः यद्बुद्ध्यवस्थितिमखण्डितया स्वदृष्टया द्रष्टा स्थितावधिमुखो व्यतिरिक्त आस्ते यस्मिन् विरुद्धगतयो ह्यनिशं पतन्ति विद्यादयो विविधशक्तय आनुपूर्व्यात् तद्ब्रह्म विश्वभवमेकमनन्तमाद्यम् आनन्दमात्रमविकारमहं प्रपद्ये सत्याशिषो हि भगवंस्तव पादपद्मम् आशीस्तथानुभजतः पुरुषार्थमूर्तेः अप्येवमद्य भगवान् परिपाति दीनान् वाश्रेव वत्सकमनुग्रहकातरोऽस्मान् स्थानाभिलाषी तपसि स्थितोऽहम् त्वां प्राप्तवान् देव मुनीन्द्रगुह्यम् काचं विचिन्वन्नपि दिव्यरत्नम् स्वामिं कृतार्थोऽस्मि वरं न याचे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे.
So nice Dhruv Stuti, right? which we also read in the previous chapter. So nice. Again, it's a Janmashtami week. So you can do more and more chanting. That's nice. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And also we have a Kirtan on Friday, next Friday, next to next Friday. So just remember that, whoever can make it. Okay. And then we'll see you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.